welcome to everybody, and I'm pleased to have you here, and thank you to West Vigo for hosting us this evening. Can you hear me now? Is there anyone who cannot hear me?
How are they going to respond to
Okay,
that?
if you cannot hear any of the comments during the evening, please raise your hand and wave. Okay, if you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Dr. Doler, could we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Killian? Here. Mrs. Lohr? Present. Ms. Lauer?
Present.
Dr. Powers?
Present.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Wise?
Here.
Mr. Irwin?
Here.
Our vision is working together with our community. We inspire our students to discover their talents and rise to their greatest potential. Our mission is building on the strengths of our diverse community. We create an engaging, comprehensive educational environment that supports the growth of lifelong learners. Regarding the consent agenda, could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second. Thank you. Mr. Irwin made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Scott seconded that. Could I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Killian?
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr?
Aye.
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
And the December accounts payable docket, the Finance Committee. Were there any questions of that committee members or comments?
We asked several questions of our leadership and got those answered. Everything looks to be in order. So I would make a motion to accept the docket as presented.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Lohr made a motion to accept the December accounts payable docket. Mrs. Wise seconded that. Could I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Killian?
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr?
Aye.
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
On to new business, donations. Superintendent Hayward.
Yes, Madam President, administration recommends approval for the following donations to be made to the following schools: Sugar Grove Elementary School, Sarah Scott Middle School, Terre Haute South Vigo High School, West Vigo High School, VCSC Aquatic Center, and VCSC Secondary Schools.
I make a motion to approve the donations as presented.
I second. Mr. Irwin made a motion to approve the donations as read by Superintendent Hayward, and Mrs. Scott seconded that. Dr. Doler.
Mrs. Killian?
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr?
Aye.
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
Thank you. Personnel report, professional leave request. Mr. Cox.
President Lauer, Superintendent Hayward, members of the Board of Trustees, administration seeks approval of the personnel report and professional leave as presented.
I'll make the motion to accept the personnel report as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Mrs. Wise made a motion to accept the personnel report professional leave request as presented, and Mr. Irwin seconded that. Mrs. Goller.
Mrs. Killian? Aye. Mrs. Lohr?
Aye.
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Physical education waiver, Dr. Stacy Mason.
Good evening, Superintendent Hayward, President Lauer, and members of the board. The VCSC is requesting approval to begin to utilize the Indiana Department of Education's flexibility and PE waiver. You have in your packet the guidelines that our team has put together for you. The overarching goal of general physical education courses is to ensure that the students meet the standards and objectives that prepare them for a lifetime of personal physical fitness. The PE waiver option is allowable by the Indiana Department of Education for students that meet many of these standards. School-based extracurricular programs in which students participate in intensive physical training above and beyond that of regular physical education courses may be substituted for regular physical education. Listed below in your packet, you have the outline of what we're recommending. We will allow PE credit for PE2 for students who are rostered in an IHSAA sport, cheer team, dance team, color guard, winter guard, or marching band in lieu of actually taking the class during the school day. All students will continue to take PE1 in our traditional format. These students would be scheduled into the PE waiver course as a 0 hour in their schedule, meaning that they would still be scheduled into their 7 class periods throughout the day, and the PE waiver course would be outside of the school day in their rostered activity. There's a lot of things that those students will have to do with a PE teacher who will be the licensed teacher giving them their grade, and that's in your packet. A committee worked on this. The committee was made up of our physical education department chairs at the high schools, our guidance counselor department chairs, our curriculum coordinator at PE, and our lead counselor coach, as well as myself. I will be happy to take any questions that you may have at this time.
I just have a clarifying question. If we approve this tonight, then do you have to get any other approval from the State Board of Education or Department of Ed? It's just set and ready to go?
It is set and ready to go. This has been in place for schools since 2009. It's just not something that we've done here in the VCSC, and we've decided to implement this so that it opens up student schedules for additional classes.
I think it's a very fair accommodation. Is there a motion to approve? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Mrs. Scott made the motion to approve the physical education waiver, and Mr. Irwin seconded that. Dr. Goller?
Mrs. Killian?
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr?
Aye.
Ms. Lauer?
Aye.
Dr. Powers?
Aye.
Ms. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Irwin?
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. The joint update by Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I will amend this just slightly. This is a year's grant update provided by Josh Zorner. Take your mask off, sir.
Good evening, Josh Zerner from Joint. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to provide an update on the GEARS grant.
Josh, I think you're going to have to speak up.
Okay. Josh Zerner from Joint. Is that better?
Yes.
Better.
Great. Thank you for having me here this evening, Dr. Hayworth and members of the board. I'm here to provide an update on the GEARS grant. GEARS stands for the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. And the last time I was here, it was to get the board's consent to enter the agreement with Joint. We are at a place now where we're wrapping up the construction to the 44 county locations. The project had 3 phases to it, 3 major components for which Joint was responsible. The first was installation of access points on the exterior of 30 Vigo County School Corporation building locations. The second phase was construction to 44 locations throughout Vigo County, and the third phase was 40 locations in the city of Terre Haute. The biggest challenge that we have had has been navigating the supply chain. We just received the electronics last week that we expected to receive early this year. So from a scope and sequence perspective at this point in time, we have completed the underground construction, placing tube in the ground, and for the most part, placing fiber optic cable to the locations that are in the outlying county locations. We have also completed the cabling inside of the Vigo County School Corporation locations. We have that cabling right up to the exterior wall of the buildings. And we have begun the construction on the City of Terre Haute locations. So we expect to start releasing service in the outlying locations in Vigo County first, so that we can get service in the outlying areas of the county. That'll happen yet this month and continue into January. We will also be installing the access points on the exterior of the Vigo County School Corporation buildings, some this month, but primarily next month in January. And we expect to have all of the City of Terre Haute locations completed and online by the end of March. So the grant itself provides well into 2022 to complete the work. So despite the challenges of receiving the necessary materials, we are still okay in terms of the timeliness on the grant. But it is certainly our priority, and I know yours as well, to get this access established for the students to have throughout the community. So we have been doing everything possible in terms of prioritizing this work. I was afraid a month ago I was going to have to stand before you today and tell you that the access points were going to arrive in February. That was the most recent date that we received, so we were delighted when the equipment showed up just over a week ago. So we're working really hard to get this equipment installed.
Thank you for
Any
that.
questions?
We'll keep that. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Goller, regarding grants?
And board members, when you are talking, if you would speak into your microphones, I believe people are having a difficult time hearing you.
Good evening, President Flowers, Superintendent Hayworth, and members of the board. Tonight, we bring you 3 grants for approval. The first one is the Early Intervention Grant. It is aligned with our strategic plan in terms of programming. It fits with our blended learning goal to support students with interventions and enrichment. The Early Intervention Grant is from the Indiana Department of Education. We're asking approval for $50,000, $657.74. This is for our elementary schools to help us screen for dyslexia, as well to provide screening and intervention materials to support them after the screening process. This would also provide substitute teachers to assist in those K-2 classrooms as the teachers help test the students. Janet Rosemer, Curriculum Coordinator, and Frank Bailey, District Reading and Writing Coach, help in this process. You see the budget is attached. The next 3 grants are part of the Indiana Department of Ed Prime Math Transition Program. We're asking for approval for 1 grant from North, 1 for South, and 1 for West Vigo, each in the amount of $8,239 from the Indiana Department of Education. This too supports our strategic planning goals, enhancing the high school experience and preparing our students for college and careers. This course is designed for students who have currently achieved the minimum math requirements for Core 40, but would like some additional assistance in preparation for math as they move into future college and careers.
This is a program that we work with Indiana State on professional development with their mathematics department, and it provides professional development and co-teaching experience for our teachers. And this would begin next school year. And then the final grant we bring you, this is the 4th year of a 5th-year grant with Project Aware. We've been very fortunate to have strong mental health support with this grant. Again, this supports all students at all of our schools. This is a $475,172.41 grant award for again, the 4th year in a 5-year period. The grant allows us to continue to work with Hamilton Center as well as other agencies within the local community and provide that important mental health support, intensive grouping support in our schools, some individual counseling, as well as mental health first aid training for our staff, a health and wellness program for our staff, counselor and teacher summer outreach activities, at-risk intervention programs, and just some overall school health programs. And Dr. Megan Kirk is our mental health coordinator that oversees this program. So we would ask for your approval this evening of the 3 large grants and then the prime grant again at North, South, and West sub-grants.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the grants as presented, and I'm going to talk really slow, let Dr. Fuller back to the meeting.
I'll second that.
Mr. Irwin made a motion to accept the grants as presented by Dr. Goller and Mrs. Lohr seconded that. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Killian.
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr.
Aye.
Ms. Lauer.
Aye.
Dr. Powers.
Aye.
Ms. Scott.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Irwin.
Aye.
Now, Dr. Hayworth, permission to advertise and hold public hearing regarding the proposed 2022 high school replacement and restoration project.
Yes, and if it would please the board, I'm going to combine 6 and 7. Tonight, with regard to approval of the high school replacement and restoration projects, my recommendation is as follows. The administration seeks permission to advertise and hold public hearings on December 27th and January the 10th, and to approve the resolution authorizing administration and any officer of the board to move forward with a controlled project as presented in your board packet.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I move approval of the resolution. I'll second that.
Dr. Powers moved to approve. Mrs. Wise seconded that. Questions, comments?
Dr. Hayward, this is basically just allowing us to keep the conversation going and move closer. This isn't, we're not deciding anything tonight. This is just continuing the conversation.
Yeah, what this does is authorize myself, board members that hold an office to continue to speak to the community with regards to the projects, and then on December 27th, and then on January 10th, conduct public hearings. So nothing is approved tonight except giving us the ability to continue to do that.
Dr. Goldberg?
Mrs. Killian.
Aye.
Mrs. Lohr.
Aye.
Ms. Lauer.
Aye.
Dr. Powers.
Aye.
Ms. Scott.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Irwin.
Aye.
Mrs. Wilson, year-end transfers of appropriations.
President Lauer, Superintendent Hayworth, members of the Board of School Trustees. Tonight, we ask permission to adjust budgets within the education, operations, debt service, and referendum funds in order to balance all budget appropriations for 2021. Transfers between major budget classifications will be brought to the board in January for your review and final approval. Tonight, we ask for your permission
permission to adjust these budgetary functions so that we can finalize and close the 2021 calendar year.
I'll make the motion to approve the year-end transfer appropriations that Ms. Wilson just described.
I'll second that.
This is something we typically do every year just to balance things.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Irwin made the motion to approve the year-end transfers of appropriations. I think it was Mrs. Wise that seconded that. Yes. Dr. Goler.
Mrs. Killian. Aye. Mrs. Lohr.
Aye.
Ms. Lauer.
Aye.
Dr. Powers.
Aye.
Ms. Scott.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Irwin.
Aye.
Next, the resolution to transfer funds to the rainy day fund. President Lauer, Superintendent Hayward, members of the board. Included in the board packet this evening is a resolution authorizing the transfer of up to $5.5 million from the operations fund to the rainy day fund at year end. As you know, and as we presented on numerous occasions, the receipt of CARES and ESSER funds, both COVID relief funds, has allowed the repurposing of some general obligation bond funds and has generated savings as a significant portion of our capital expenditures for technology, HVAC replacement, roofing and paving, and other building improvements has been funded by ESSER or repurposed GO bonds. This allows one-time savings in the operations fund. Additionally, the corporation did receive a $1.25 million settlement for ESG earlier this year, and that is also included in this potential transfer. Once transferred to the rainy day fund, the board will be required to formally appropriate these funds for use in future years as necessary to provide additional revenue from the tax-supported funds. The DLGF, the Department of Local Government Finance, would approve that budget when needed. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this transfer, but respectfully request permission of this resolution this evening. Could I have a motion to approve? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Scott made a motion to approve the resolution to transfer funds to the rainy day fund, and Mr. Irwin seconded that. Comments, questions from the board?
Can we just it's me speaking, I just wanted to clarify that moving that money into the rainy day fund is an important part of the very hard work that we have been doing to right-size the district and to be good stewards of the funds that we have.
Yes, and it's very important to know that some of these savings, a substantial portion of these were one-time savings. For example, we didn't buy buses one year. All those things have accumulated and increased that operations fund budget, or that operations fund cash balance. So this would set those funds aside to be used in future years to offset any shortfalls we may have.
Thank you.
Dr. Doler.
Mrs. Killian. Aye. Mrs. Lohr.
Aye.
Ms. Lauer.
Aye.
Dr. Powers.
Aye.
Ms. Scott.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Irwin.
Aye.
Now I'd like to open the hearing up for the proposed consolidation and repurposing of Meadows Elementary. I need to remind everyone here to please address your comments toward the school board and speak into the microphone. And we have over 20 that have signed up to speak, so you'll be limited to 3 minutes, as was our policy in the past. And Mr. Irwin will track your time. So I just remember that you are speaking to the board, and of course, as always, you are respectful for each person that's going to speak, and there, no unnecessary noise or anything from the rest of the audience. So the first one I have up here was Brantley Urbane. I'm sorry.
He changed his.
Oh, okay, thank you. Susan Beeson.
It's always tough being number one. Good evening. My name is Susan Beeson. I reside at 3403 Ohio Boulevard in Terre Haute, Indiana. I was born and reared in Terre Haute, grew up in Holman Meadows, went to Woodrow Wilson. My father was actually a principal in this corporation many years ago. I grew up in a home filled with education, and I spent 30 years of my life in an elementary classroom. I've taught every grade, and I understand education and the need for change that goes along with a corporation and the community in which it functions. When I heard of the possible closing of Meadows, I couldn't believe it. As you know, the East End is one of the most sought after and desirable locations for families to reside. So why would the board recommend such a change? I listened to Dr. Fenton's presentation outlining the criteria 3 times. Her committee was given the task of right sizing. You've heard the comments on, well, you will hear more comments regarding that presentation, so I won't go ahead of anyone that's going to speak on that. The thing that struck me was the many times it was stated that we must do what is right for the corporation. And it struck me that there were no other alternative plans offered other than closing Meadows. So based on that premise of what we must do right for the corporation, I would like to state the benefits to the corporation for keeping Meadows School open. Number 1, the money the corporation will have to spend to keep it open will have to be spent anyway on repurposing it. So money will have to be spent regardless, one way or the other. Number 2, since the East End is growing and the land that Meadows sits on will allow for expansion and the development of state-of-the-art educational facilities in the future, thereby giving the corporation more options and flexibility for future planning and accommodation. Number 3, this school addresses and allows for diversity in its enrollment, thereby
30 seconds.
Excuse me?
30 seconds remaining.
Oh, thereby exposing children to multiple socioeconomic groups, races, and ethnicities. 4, uses the taxpayers' monies wisely, promotes positive relationships in the neighborhood and the community, and does not require extra busing. All right, I have many more. What I would love for the board to do is be proactive, thinking in the future. Do not look at Meadows as a lump of coal. Look at it as a diamond
That's
in the
time.
rough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Pavel.
Hi, this is Tanvi. I teach at Rose Hallman. I teach their economics. So when I have heard these names, it was kind of heartbreaking for me because my daughter is studying at Meadows Elementary for the last 2 years. I consider the repurposing of Meadows Elementary School's decision should have to be considered not only from the efficiency point of view, like the cost-benefit point of view, but also from the safety and the sustainability of the community point of view. So the administration should consider all the possible alternatives to run the school and make a positive impact on the communities. When you think about the public school like Meadows, you not only care about the physical market benefits, but you should care about the non-marketable sustained benefits that you achieve from it. So I wanted to share a very few points that you need to take into consideration. My biggest concern for school closing are the impacts that it will have on the quality of the children's education. So if they have to displace from one school to another school, I'm truly concerned not only about the classroom size, but also the individual attention and the overall impact on that displacement. The The decision can change the overall population structure of the community, I believe, because some families can move out. It can have a different population density at a house. We are already losing the populations here, and people will consider that questions, I believe, considering to move it to any different place or location. I also anticipate that there is a possibility of dropout from the schools. Many people, due to the stress, due to the indecisions, may not send their schools to a different schools, or may not be able to give them better educations at home. So that's another thing into my consideration. I'm considering about the interactive learning due to the close of the schools and the high economic cost of the child cares and associated confusions and the stress to the parents of the communities. I hope the administration will pay attention to all the points that we are discussing here and try to find out an alternative solution to run the meetings. Thank you.
Is it Wyoming Pruitt?
Sorry, I don't do this very often. By the way, this is Brantley. He's the 9-year-old that changed his mind. Meadows is the first school that he gets taught at home. His teachers are wonderful. He can't. He's been to 3 other schools before that. He was kicked out every single day. He was only sent home twice from Meadows. My sister had been there since she was 5. She doesn't know anything else. And it's not even convenient for me. I live on Barber Avenue. I drive them to school, cross the tracks, and make sure they get there on time. It's not convenient at all, but it's what's best for them. I implore you guys, please think about the value that these kids look at, the stability that half of them only know at school. And the fact that it's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about what's best for the kids. Thank you.
Kelly Dumas?
Good evening. Kelly Dumas, 2609 Wilson Street, Terre Haute. Please allow me to preface my comments by saying I completely understand the emotions and concerns of parents who have children at Meadows School. It's not easy for stakeholders to go through the closing of a school, and all students are important. I believe it is essential our corporation become lean and fiscally responsible at this time. A facility which serves under 200 students is not viable in terms of the financial output necessary to keep it open. We have a declining, aging, and impoverished population. Our city has less than 60,000 citizens for the first time in 100 years. The tax base has become slim, and with the decision looming over us concerning high schools, we are in a precarious position. The closings and conditions of our school should have been addressed years ago. All of our facilities have been victims of a lack of leadership, maintenance, and questionable financial situations. Yes, the community suffered and continues to suffer from these poor decisions. We must continue to improve the opportunities for our children by making our school community effective and efficient. This generation deserves it, and so do the future generations. It's not an easy journey, and everyone will not agree, but we owe it to our students to try. Progress can be painful, but the future demands we go through these growing pains.
I applaud our current school board for attempting to be forward-thinking and financially responsible. A caveat in my life, which may or may not apply, is my dream car is a Range Rover. But my husband says if I were financially and fiscally aware, I might be driving one now, but I am not. Thank you.
Cassandra Cook.
Superintendent Hayward, President Lauer, and members of the board. My name is Cassandra Cook. I have been honored to be the principal of Meadows Elementary School for the past 9 years. I attended this school myself when I was in elementary school. I was fortunate to have been able to walk to school with my siblings and friends in Edgewood Grove, where I grew up. It was a great school then, and it continues to be a great school now. I have a dedicated staff who comes to work each day and works hard to meet the needs of our school population. They have been remarkable this year and over the course of the pandemic. They have gone over and beyond the call of duty to help students maintain their learning even when schools were closed. Last year, when the Boys and Girls Club began to provide programs at the Meadows school site, our staff worked with them to make this program successful. We are proud of the partnership that we have established with the Boys and Girls Club. It is with mixed emotion to learn that Meadows will possibly close at the end of this school year. I know this is a difficult decision for everyone involved. However, I want you to know that regardless of the decision you make, we will do everything possible to continue to serve our students and school community in the best way possible. Thank you for your time and your service as board members.
Izzy Pinkston.
Good evening. With the closing of Deming and West Elementary Schools, the community has not been shown any data to support the monetary savings from these closures. The data cannot include the sale of the administration building or the profit from the Deming Early Learning Center. It needs to be specific with the 2 closures only. This would be relevant information for the community to know. Do we as taxpayers know if the first 2 closures really were a saving? Not at this time, because no data on this has been released. How are people expected to make educated decisions without all of the information? All of this data needs to be explored before a decision can be made. At this point, I am respectfully requesting the board to consider moving the January 10th board meeting to Meadows Elementary School to allow the families that will be affected by this decision to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Payne.
My name is Aaron. I am in first grade at Meadows. I wrote this to tell you one reason why you should keep Meadows open. I think that Meadows is a good school where it is because it is in a good place for people to get from Edmond Road and other close neighborhoods like where I am.
Aaron, can you just speak up just a little bit more, please?
Because it is close, people can walk and bike there. I walk or bike to and from school every day. It is fun to bike to school every day. It is good exercise too. When my friends saw me biking, they started biking too. It is fun for them. I think it is fun for them. Also, we get to experience how the seasons change. Every day when we walk or bike to school, something is different every day. I look forward biking with my brothers when they are old enough. It is important for me to be able to walk or bike to school. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michelle Marinsla Payne, and I am a Meadows parent. Aaron is a current Meadows student, and I have 2 sons who look forward to attending Meadows too. In fact, I was planning to send my 4-year-old to Meadows this year, but the pre-K program was yanked. I am not able to drop off at 3 locations, and I can't imagine being more resource constrained and needing to get to my kids to multiple consolidated schools, especially if they can't walk or bike. Isn't Aaron great? We really do bike or walk every day. Meadows is connected to the greater east side from Central Terre Haute to the far east side by the Ohio Bay bike lanes and wide built-for pedestrian sidewalks, in addition to the Heritage Trail and its spurs. These routes connect neighborhoods north of Wabash via the Indiana Mile, the trail around the ISU Stadium, and that connects to the Heritage Trail. We intentionally put down roots in the Meadows neighborhood. Before purchasing our current house, we lived near the ISU Stadium, which reinforced our desire to live here. People are, across the spectrum, choosing to live in areas that are safely accessible by walking and biking. In fact, the accessibility expansion in this area is what was so desirable for the condo developers across the street from me, and why they had to put their development where they did. I am a civil and environmental engineer. I teach students how, alongside city planners, architects, and community stakeholders, how we can place civil infrastructure to support communities. Current practices expect that residential neighborhoods are built around safely accessible schools, shopping areas, parks, and churches. The east side of Terre Haute surrounding Meadows is the definition of this. The statistics are sobering. According to the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, Indiana ranks 5th for having the most obese population at over 30%, and Vigo County ranks 8th out of 92 counties. Time outdoors is also correlated with improved mental health outcomes, and like the nation and world, we have a mental health crisis on our hands exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. While other communities, and thankfully some philanthropic organizations even here, are developing safe routes to school, a federally Department of Transportation supported program to promote walking and biking, Vigo School Corporation is recommending that a safely accessible neighborhood school, the only one that serves a diverse community, be closed, and those children spend time riding buses or being transported by a car. Regarding after-school care, now students will be transported back to their old school for aftercare at the Boys and Girls Club? That's nonsensical. It is absolutely unsafe or infeasible to bike or walk to any other school that we could be redistricted to. For one, Lost Creek does not even allow bikers or walkers, even if I could and wanted to. Unfortunately, the city does not support sidewalks by allowing unfinished streets. There are literally no sidewalks connecting, going south on Brown towards Devaney. The east side is flourishing. The demographics of my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods are becoming younger. In my immediate neighborhood alone, 7 new families have moved in. Nearly a third of my neighborhood has turned over. Some of them are not even school-aged yet, but they will be, and Meadows will have them. In fact, pre-COVID, Meadows was one of 5 elementary schools to have increased enrollment, out of then 18, per VCSC data. Want more students at Meadows? Meadows has so much potential. Return the GT program to Meadows so all people across Terre Haute will have access and expanded programs. That's what keeps Terre Haute special, beautiful, healthy, and makes it not just livable, but desirable. Thank you.
Dr. It's Lillian. I'm not sure the last name. W-I-T-H-E-S?
They're walking up.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Keep on.
Hi, I am Lily. I go to Meadows and I am in 3rd grade. Meadows is my school. It is where my friends are. At Meadows, I found my voice. I don't want to go to a different school with different people. My teacher and age love me. They know how to help me learn. I feel safe at Meadows. Please don't make me leave.
Thank you.
Good job, Lillian. Dr. Jenny Mueller.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. I am Dr. Jenny Miller. I am a parent of 2 children at Meadows Elementary. I am currently the president of the PTO at Meadows. I am also an engineer and am a rationally minded person who interprets data in a realistic and honest manner. Board members, I encourage you to think critically about the information that was presented to you on Wednesday, December 1st, as the reasoning and justification for the closure and repurposing of Meadows Elementary School. I realize that the recommendation was made based on a combination of several factors, but I'd like to dig into each factor with which I have concern. We've been told that the district needs to be right-sized, with data presented that we have 18 elementary schools, while other districts of our size have 11 elementary schools. The number of the schools is irrelevant compared to the size of the school, the capacity, the building square footage. We were told Meadows was chosen due to the building age and facilities maintenance costs for upkeep based on the facility assessment grade of D from the facilities assessment by Fanning and Howie. This is irrelevant as the school building is being repurposed for other uses for the corporation. How are the building age and upkeep costs not an issue for the proposed activities and programs planned to move into the building? The building may also need to be remodeled or renovated to accommodate for the various activities moving into the building. How much was spent on renovating the West Vigo Elementary School building to accommodate for the repurposing of an administration building? I mean, I'm just a civil engineer, but I think it would cost less to fix any minor deficiencies to keep the building functioning as an elementary school than it would cost for more extensive renovations that would be required to repurpose the building. Also, Meadows was one of 4 elementary schools to receive a facility assessment grade of D. The other 3 schools, Lost Creek, Wabash, and Rio Grande, are continuing to function as elementary schools, even with the poor rating. I'd like to see the breakdown of the accounting and anticipated savings for the corporation due to the closure and repurposing of Meadows Elementary School and what impact this has on the budget. Decline in enrollment numbers was another reason that Meadows Elementary School was chosen to be the next to close. If you look at the data presented at the community meetings that were held in 2020, as of the 1920 school year, Meadows enrollments was trending up with an enrollment trend of a positive 2.9%, only one of 5 elementary schools in the corporation with a positive enrollment trend at that time. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, families throughout the corporation opted for other means of elementary schooling, such as virtual learning or private schools, reducing enrollment within school building district-wide. This was not addressed when data was presented on current enrollment at Meadows during the Consolidation Committee meeting presentation to the board Wednesday, December 1st. Furthermore, 1 functional classroom and 2 pre-K classrooms closed for the 21-22 school year, further reducing enrollment numbers at Meadows. For these reasons, I question the justification that we've been provided. Board members, as elected representatives of this community, I urge you to think critically about the information we've received. Let's be real, let's be honest, let's get some answers on the true motivation and budgetary impact for this closure before voting. Thank you.
Aaron Withers.
Hello. I'm going to give it from a different perspective. We're out of county, so we're in on a permit. My 2 kids are both in the functional class. Lillian is my daughter. I have a son just like her. They both use a device to speak. They weren't going to get that in Clay County. They learned that. I'm a Vigo County school kid, and it's a lot different now than it was when I was a kid. I grew up in I went to Lost Creek as an elementary school, where in my 6th grade year we were in a MOA. The school has since grown so big that when I go by it to get to where we live, the school, the way that we used to, the buses dropped off in the back, they drop off now in the front, pick up, and now the line for the pickup and the drop off is out on the 40. You know, you have to move over, you have to get out of these people's way. How is that safe? It's not. My mother would be so proud of me. It doesn't make any sense to me. I have never in my life walked into Meadows. We've been there the last 2 years. It's been amazing. There was another functional class that's been since removed. So there's, I believe, 9 kids in this functional room now with my kids, or including my kids. Kids that are nonverbal or have some sort of a disability, they're just as important and need the right kind of attention as other kids. I grew up in classes of 35, 40 kids. When I went to Wilson, then my mother sent me to a boarding school where there were 10 kids in a class, which is a totally different Meadows has been a great addition to our family. It's not, like someone else said, it is not, on my way by any means. I go out of my way, and it has been a fantastic school. Cassandra's done a great job. All the staff there has done a great job. I grew up with Cassandra and I went to school together. It's kind of nice. It's in a nice location. People buy into Edward Grove for this very reason, because you could walk. I always thought it was cool, because you couldn't walk from my house. I mean, I could have, but I would have been in trouble. From the east side to over to Meadows. But it's a great location. It's got a lot of property and potential for it. And like someone else said again, you're going to spend the money somewhere. So why not spend it into the school, where it's not a parking issue, it's not a traffic hazard. People can ride their bikes. People can walk to school. It's nice. It's very a homey setting.
30 seconds.
And that's it.
Thank you. Kevin Barr.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Barr. I live in Edgewood Grove. Susie Beeson spoke earlier. I grew up across the street from her. Went to Meadows School with Christy. My dad taught business for White County Schools for 18 years, and Mrs. Lauer had him for class. And I worked with Dr. Powers at ISU. So anyway, that's my claim to fame. So anyway, Steve Jobs of Apple Computer had the saying, think differently. What I would like to draw to your attention is Davis Park at 2:15. Thursday last week I went past Davis Park.
Can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. What part did you miss? The whole thing? All right, start over. Clock.
Well, I don't think we need the disclaimers, but.
Okay, all right. Well, my name is Kevin Barr, and Steve Jobs of Apple Computer had the saying, think differently. The point I would like to draw everybody's attention to is Davis Park at 2:15. Thursday last week, I went by Davis Park, generally going on Walnut, so I thought I'd like to see what it looks like. At 2:15, the cars were already lined up along the side of the street, and the back two cars in the line, which stretched from one corner to the other, you couldn't turn down the street. And then 15 minutes later, at 2:30, when I went by, the cars are not only backed up on 18th Street, but they're backed up on Poplar Street. So my concern is, I'm afraid some young student's going to get hurt at Davis Park while the traffic's swirling around the block. Walnut, Poplar, and 19th are all heavy traffic. Please take a moment to contrast the image in your mind of your children being dropped off and being picked up at Davis Park, and do the same thing to the Meadows School campus. I went over your December 1 working session video. I thought Dr. Goller did a very fine job of identifying repurposing possibilities, and Dr. Christy Fenton and her committee did an excellent job of laying out the criteria that they considered for their conclusion. I would submit that there was a criteria that may have been missed and not considered, or given enough weight, and that being dropping off and picking up little children. Here's the think different part. I submit that Meadows lends itself better for the activities of dropping off and picking up little children, and Davis Park lends itself better for the repurposing of older student programs. I would recommend putting K through 12 and the younger children programs at Meadows, and put the repurposing programs for the older students at Davis Park. And
30 seconds.
So anyway, once again, I would submit the dropping off and picking up young students is far safer at Meadows than it is at Davis Park. The K through 12 and the younger student programs should be located at Meadows, and the repurposing programs for the older students should be located at Davis Park. As the probability of the older students are more able to safely navigate, the environment at Davis Park. Thank you very much.
think that was a great intro for what I'm about to talk about. I'm the mother of a senior at Terrebonne South and a third grader at Meadows Elementary School. I've served on Davis Park PTO for all 6 years of my daughter's time there, including president of the PTO for 2 years. I'm currently the treasurer at Meadows PTO. I think my volunteerism record shows I'm an involved parent, and I know what happened at both of these schools.
They cannot hear you in the back, so.
And I've seen what happens at both of these schools. Davis Park hasn't had an in-school.
I think the mic's off.
Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay. Davis Park hasn't had an in-school, after-school program in over 13 years. Even when they had attendance over 500, they never had enough families signed up to commit a program long-term. Despite the transition from Casey to the Y to the Boys and Girls Club, Meadows has always sustained an in-school, after-school program. I'm stressing the importance of this because when you bus kids for after-school program, you take away their ability to be part of student council or after-school clubs. Parents can't just pick up and leave work at 3:30 to pick up a student whose club ends at 4. Davis Park is a landlocked property with minimal parking and severe traffic issues. You could spend 15 minutes in morning car drop-off line only to watch multiple children almost get hit by people fed up waiting and blow past the line. And walking there is no safer. There have been 2 pedestrians struck by vehicles in the last 4 years on Walnut Street, directly in front of that school. And the school corporation in the city, neither one has done anything to address that problem. Attending school functions was miserable as you would have to park blocks away and walk to attend it. Meadows has a pedestrian yield flasher for walkers, a long front drive for fast, safe, and easy pickup and drop-off, and ample parking for every event put on. I point this out because it's a direct contradiction to the observations and scores given to these 2 schools in your facilities assessment provided by Fanning Howard. When it came time for our youngest to start kindergarten, my husband and I sat down to discuss where we would send her to school, knowing our only starting point was that she would not be going to Davis Park. After researching which schools actually maintained a consistent after-school program and talking with friends who had kids there, we were thrilled to have her start at Meadows. We chose a place
30
that...
seconds.
I'm going to have to skip to the end then. In April of this year, the Indiana General Assembly passed a new proposal, expanded the bill for the school voucher program to encompass virtually all middle-class families. If you close Meadows, I will do something I've lobbied against for years. I will pull my daughter from Vigo County Public Schools and I will send her on a voucher to St. Pat's. Thank you.
Ray Azar.
Thank you, President Lala, Superintendent Hayworth, and members of the board. I speak only for myself this evening as a former resident of Edgewood Grove for 20 years. My children attended Meadows School. My wife was in the first kindergarten class when Meadows School was open. I am a current property owner in Hallman Meadows subdivision also. I can see Meadows School from the backyard of that property, so I have an interest in what happens tonight. I respect those people on the committee who made this recommendation, and I don't envy you as board members for your role because this is a difficult decision. The recommendation to close Meadows School is one of the most important things you can do, or you will be doing as a board member. This is not just about closing Meadows School. It's far-reaching and goes to the heart of support for the neighborhood school concept. That has been around for decades, and this board and previous boards have supported neighborhood schools. This is not part of this recommendation. It goes against that. Meadows serves an important purpose. It's a safety valve for the East Side educational structure. If you close it, it will impact the enrollment of 4 other schools, some of which are already crowded. Meadows serves the large subdivisions of Edgewood Grove and Hallman Meadows, as well as those areas north of Wabash and east. Children can walk to school or bike to school. Closing Meadows will increase the busing to these schools that are the receiving schools, and they are already crowded. The result of closing Meadows will increase the student density index at the receiving schools. You will remember that index was very important in the ability of schools to socially distance students. You will be increasing this index with the closure of the school, of Meadows School. Instead, you should be trying to find ways to maintain safe distancing. We are still in a surge. We do not want to go back to an A-B schedule where children do not receive 5 days a week of full-time school. We're still in a pandemic. We're still wearing masks. It makes no sense to increase density at any school, but this recommendation will do just that. It will make it more unsafe for Meadows School students as well as those in the receiving schools. This is not the time to be closing schools and reducing classrooms. It has been asserted that we can save money by closing Meadows, and that is false. If you're using the building for another purpose, you will still pay utilities, hire a custodian and a secretary. Your savings will be insignificant. Why disrupt the East Side education structure and not save anything of any significance? Finally, if you close a school and build a subdivision, it makes no sense. You'll need a school for the kids in that new subdivision. Please reconsider and do not vote for this recommendation. Take away the rumors of closing Meadows School, and you will see a return of the enrollment to approximately 300 students, which is really a more normal, natural enrollment for Meadows School. Thank you very much.
Helen Watson.
Good evening. While Meadows may have smaller enrollment compared to other elementary schools in Terre Haute, we have big things to offer. One piece of data that you won't find on the slides or papers is Meadows drop-off and pickup. We have a safe pickup and drop-off. We have no busy roads blocking entry or departures of vehicles, and we have a space for a line of cars to occur. This occurs quickly and safely for all parties involved. Second, the east side of Terre Haute is growing. Devaney, Franklin, Lost Creek, and Davis Park, the schools that our students will be sent to, already have large enrollment numbers. What happens as the east side continues to grow? And Meadows is no longer an option. Will the feeder schools need to be built onto to make room for additional students? Building on will increase additional expenses for the school corporation. Lastly, Meadows sits on a large plot of undeveloped land, one of the largest in the district. This land can be used for future growth. We have the capacity to build, unlike many other schools which are landlocked. The Boys and Girls Club, which paired with Meadows, was already planning on building 2 gyms and a makerspace. These gyms and makerspace were to be given back to the community. No other school has the opportunity for the Boys and Girls Club like Meadows does. I recently learned that our school reached out to the Girl Scouts to pair with our students to build gardens on our large plot of land. Unfortunately, because of the rumored closings, this project was unable to come to fruition. But just think of the possibilities our land could give to students. Think of the science lessons that could occur from gardens, the hands-on learning that our students would have. Whether it be gardens, gyms, or soccer fields, students and the community can only benefit from what Meadows Elementary has to offer through this land. We already host practices for many youth football teams, and the Boys and Girls Club used our fields this summer for golf practice, something no other elementary school can use. While Meadows may have small enrollment now, we have the ability to grow and expand. We have safe drop-off and pickup due to our placement in the community. Meadows is more valuable as a school than it would be as a learning center. Before making your final decisions as the school board, I strongly urge you to walk the halls of Consolidated and Franklin before making your final decisions. Teachers at Consolidated are teaching on stages and in closets. Sped teachers are rolling on carts through the hallways to service students. Walk through the classrooms of Lost Creek, Devaney, and Davis Park. Do this more than once and unannounced. See the everyday situation that our students, teachers, and faculty and staff are in daily. It is one thing to see numbers on a sheet of paper and another to see students in the classroom. Lastly, I request that the January 10th meeting be moved to Meadows Elementary School so that families and students who would be directly affected by the school's by the school board's decision have a better opportunity to attend and have their voices be heard. Thank you.
Nicholas Chambers.
Good evening, President Lauer, Superintendent Hayworth, and Board of Trustees. I first want to say thank you, Dr. Hayworth, for encouraging our staff to use our voices and speak out against the repurposing of Meadows. I come to you tonight to ask you, the board members, to visit the elementary schools of Sugar Creek Consolidated, Benjamin Franklin, Lost Creek, and Adeline Devaney, unannounced, so you can see what truly those classrooms look like in those schools. I want you to firsthand to see what these schools what they look like before you vote on closing them. I mean the repurposing of Meadows. Some of the schools are busting at the seams, like Consolidated, who have classes that are being taught in their auditorium. Consolidated also has teachers teaching out of closets and on rolling carts. How does this in any way create an engaging, positive learning environment? What about Lost Creek? How can you board the promise our students can get an adequate education at an elementary school that has over 600 students currently attending it? What about Benjamin Franklin? How can you, the board, be willing to send more impoverished kids into that school that already has an extremely high poverty rate? This is creating less diversity amongst the schools. Our students will just become another number at these schools. Lastly, I hope you reconsider where the January 10th board meeting will be held. I ask that you take it upon yourselves to move the meeting to Meadows Elementary School to celebrate this wonderful school. Not to mention that the parents and guardians of these students deserve the right to come to these meetings. Yes, the meetings are public. However, our demographic does not have the means to drive all the way to West Terre Haute to speak for our school. Thank you for your time.
Lindsay Kopinski.
Good evening. It was stated at the December planning meeting that the receiving schools after the closure of Deming and West Terre Haute elementaries have not been affected by the increase of students and staff. The schools have not been in this new setting for a complete school year yet. What kind of data has been collected to support the claim that the schools are not affected? There have not been studies made available to the community on test scores, attendance, class size, and projected growth after these closures. The state of Indiana has not had iLearn or iRead for this year. It would be interesting to see how the iLearn and iRead scores look in the buildings that received additional students. It would be beneficial to the community to have a clear picture of the true effect of the closures before the board meeting makes their final decision. I am respectfully requesting that the board to consider moving the January 10th board meeting to Meadows Elementary School. Thank you.
Heidi Isaiah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, President Lauer, Superintendent Hayward, members of the board. My husband and I are homeowners in Edgewood Grove. We live in the Grove with our 2 children. At the December 1st board meeting, when the building closure was proposed, it was stated that the reorganization committee started round 2 from scratch. I would like to point out that when a building representative from Meadows requested to step down and let another teacher take over for round 2, she was told her spot on the committee would not be refilled. It was stated at the December 1st meeting that families from both West Elementary and Deming were told they would be placed in a building so as to not go through another building change in the future. That implies no children were moved to Meadows when Deming closed because it was already known Meadows would be closing. Children could not come to Meadows and then get moved again, and then they have to renege on their promise to those families. It would have made economic sense to move Deming kids to Meadows because the Deming district boundary and the Meadows district boundaries bordered each other. Had redistricting been done and Deming kids moved to Meadows, Meadows enrollment would have increased. Meadows numbers seem to have been manipulated to keep them low so as to use that as leverage for closure. On the last slide of the presentation from the December meetings, it references, quote, district boundaries were looked at as, quote, other considerations. The Deming/Meadows boundary was not explored. At the December meeting, it was stated that a pre-K program would be available at Meadows if the repurposing passed. Meadows already had a pre-K program. Meadows had programs removed from the building at the end of last year. A Title I pre-K and a special ed covered bridge pre-K program were taken out of the building, lowering the overall numbers. Davis Park was allowed to keep those programs in their buildings, but Meadows was not. Why were these programs removed only to be put back in after a proposed closure? Again, the numbers seem to have been manipulated to show low enrollment. There are children that travel on a bus through the Meadows district to go out to Lost Creek. The children that live by the ISU Stadium are in Lost Creek district. That area is much closer to Meadows district. Why are the taxpayers spending money on buses to send kids further away to an already overcrowded school? Why are
30
kids
seconds.
traveling through one district to go to another district that is further away? These kids should be going to Meadows. Again, that number seems to have been manipulated to keep Meadows enrollment low when redistricting was not done after closing 2 schools. When Deming closed, boundaries should have been redistricted. I am asking you to vote no on this proposal. You cannot unring that bell. Not enough time has elapsed from the other closures. I am respectfully requesting the board to consider moving the January 10th board meeting to Meadows Elementary so Meadows families can attend. Thank you.
Alexandra Nichols.
Can you hear me all right? Okay. Good evening. I'm Alexandra Nichols, the counselor at Meadows Elementary School. I'm aware that the information I will share with you may not impact your decisions, so all that I ask is that you listen with open hearts and minds. Looks can be deceiving. Outside looking in, Meadows does have a lower number of students in a building that is in fact older. These are true statements, but when making decisions that impact hundreds of individuals, children, adults, and neighboring communities alike, a deeper look must be taken. From mid-August to today's date, I personally have made 40 VCS reports on our small population alone. This number does not include any DCS reports made by any other staff member in our building. They consisted of, without going into detail, abuse, neglect, molestations, children witnessing drug use, severe domestic abuse, and many others too disturbing for me to mention. When conducting the state-mandated MBF Child Safety Matters lessons, almost 30% of my students confided that they do not feel safe at home. Meadows is their home. Our smaller enrollment numbers provide zero insight on the significantly high needs of our students. 20% of our students is receiving extra support through Kids Hope, Hamilton Center, FSA counseling, and counseling from Murphy, Urban, and Associates. Referrals are made at a continual and consistent basis, and that percentage will increase by the end of the academic year. We don't want our Meadowlarks lost in the shuffle. For those of you who are not aware of the ACE study, ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences. There are 10 adverse childhood experiences. They are physical, emotional, sexual abuse, growing up with a drug user or an alcoholic, incarceration of a parent, parent with mental illness, domestic violence, loss of a parent, and emotional neglect. Findings show us that children with 4 or more have increased risk for smoking and drug use, increased depression, suicide attempts, and also correlates to impaired job functioning, criminal involvement, and homelessness. And many of my students at Meadows have 4 or more ACEs. So yes, we do have a smaller population. However, it's my firm belief that moving our students to already crowded schools will continue to traumatize an already traumatized population. As a school counselor, it's my ethical duty to advocate for all students. I humbly ask that you consider this data while making your decision for our resilient, perseverant, and truly sweet Meadowlarks. Thank you.
Julie Sutliff.
Good evening. I know this has been mentioned several times, but I just want to reiterate
we respectfully would love for you to consider moving the January 10th meeting to Meadows so that more of our families could get involved and show their support as well. And I really like the way that Mr. Chambers said to celebrate Meadows. Give us that chance for our families to come and celebrate. Thank you.
Valerie Kershaw.
Thank you for the chance to speak, Dr. Hayworth, President Lauer, and members of the board. Like others, I would like to request a venue change January 10th to Meadows. A community school has a way of changing lives. In 9 years, we moved here, enrolled my son at Meadows. I became PTO president, began subbing at Meadows, hired as an EA, expanded my 6 through 12 teaching license to K-12 just so I could work at Meadows. That's the pull a community school can have. 2 years ago, I was hired as Title I reading recovery teacher. 1 year ago, I was cut from my Title I job and placed into a first grade classroom where I am now. My class is insanely, beautifully diverse for Terre Haute, and I would like to fight for their future. With our daughter in 3rd grade and myself as a first grade teacher, closing Meadows would create considerable upheaval in our household. However, we are just as concerned about the many kids at Meadows that don't have the same advantages and home support that we do. Meadows staff have asked for programs to remain. We have asked for programs to return. I formally ask, once again, consider moving the GT program back to Meadows and alleviate the overcrowding at Lost Creek instead of sending more students and adding to their nightmare pickup situation. In addition, we welcome back the other programs that have been mentioned. Rumors of Meadows closure have been swirling for years. I have heard them as PTO member, parent, and staff at Meadows. I called Mr. Riley to request his help to alleviate rumors of our closure back in early COVID days, and it was a great conversation, and I appreciated his willingness to talk at length. But rumors of Meadows closing sank our enrollment. People unassociated with Meadows, including other teachers in this corporation, had information that we did not. That's when I tried to call you, Dr. Hayworth. I did receive a call back from Dr. Fenton, which I truly appreciated, and we had a great conversation too. But I have specific stories of parents who decided not to enroll their students at Meadows because they did not want to move their student multiple times when Meadows closed. Again, people in power had access to information unavailable to those subject to the decision. Dr. Hayworth, we would love to have more than 30 minutes of your time. Please come and visit us. And President Lauer and board members, I invite you to do the same. In Denver Public Schools, when I taught with 5,000 teachers, Superintendent Bennett there knew my name, knew what I taught, and had regular conversations with us. Please come give us a fair chance to talk with us, visit with us, see what makes our school community tick, and come to understand why programs and students and opportunities should remain and return to Meadows. Please let me walk my daughter to school every day and keep Meadows open. Please let me be a neighborhood mom to these kids, supporting students at school. Please let me continue to be a teacher at Meadows, taking advantage of the beautiful trees out back, our outdoor learning lab, and this gorgeous property. And more importantly, please vote no to close Meadows Elementary. Thank you.
I have another card filled out for Lily Withers, but Lily has spoken and so has her mother, so I'm going to put that aside. Okay. Natalie Lewis.
Hi, I have a student passing things out to you as well, if you don't mind. Hi, I'm Natalie Lewis, and I'm the current speech-language pathologist at Meadows Elementary School. And while there are many reasons that I believe the proposed plan to close Meadows School is problematic, tonight I will be focusing on the implications for our special education population. According to the numbers pulled from the presentation you received previously, 166 students currently enrolled at Meadows will be in 1st through 5th grade next year. 12 of those students are in self-contained classrooms in which they state that they will move that whole cohort of students together. And while this could be worse, it doesn't recognize that these are our students who need consistency in their environment most.
But moving beyond those students, less than half of our students that would be moving are general education students who could make that transition somewhat easily to a regular classroom. 1/4 of our students currently have an IEP, an individualized education plan that identifies special education eligibility and that delineates a specific level of service need different from typically developing children. These children might get 90 minutes of individualized reading support, small group math support. They may need to be checked in with an adult on a regular basis for a behavior plan. They may have their tests read aloud to them. And all of those services are required by law. Beyond that, there are 17 students that we are meeting on a regular basis with our student assistance team because of concerns with their behavior, their academics, or both. And all of those students also have similar interventions in their regular school day. And there are 11 students currently being tested by our school psychologist to determine if they will qualify for an IEP and special education services. So what does this proposed school closure mean for the more than 50% of our students who aren't typical? To answer this question, I'm going to use my sister as an example. She's a special education resource teacher, and she worked at Deming Elementary School last year. She had 10 students with IEPs who she was responsible for, and she had average small group sizes of 3 students. This year, she works at Franklin, and she is responsible for 24 IEPs. She services 34 students a day and has group sizes of 8 students. That is not a small group. That is not what our students need, and it is not what they deserve. In a crucial time of development, when we're considering students who are already experiencing learning loss due to COVID and who already have significant learning and behavior needs, is it really an ethical decision to decrease the quality of the educational services these children are provided? From my perspective, working with these children daily, it is not. With this current plan, or lack thereof, I don't feel that it is possible for us to provide all of the services, meet the state requirements, and meet the needs of these children. And at this time, I do not feel it is responsible to close Meadows Elementary School. Thank you.
Julie Terrell.
Good evening. I have somebody passing something out for you guys also. It is my understanding that the administration makes a proposal and the board then listens to all of the information, considers it, and becomes informed about all of the components of the proposal. The community, taxpayers, then have the opportunity to either support or oppose the administrative proposal publicly. After this process of gathering all of the information from all of the parties involved, the board will then take a vote. The proposal of Meadows Elementary repurposing is just that, a proposal. It has not been voted on by you, the board. I have shared with you 2 emails that have been sent out to faculty of receiving schools before the community has even spoken. Why would they be coming to the buildings to discuss something that has not been approved by the board? Does the administration know something that the community does not know about this vote? Please think about what impression that leaves on the community. The old saying, putting the cart before the horse. This board represents the community and the children that attend these schools. Please openly listen to all of the information before making your final decision. I am respectfully requesting the board to consider moving the January 10th board meeting to Meadows Elementary to allow the families that will be affected by this decision to attend. Thank you.
Gabriel Bolton.
Good evening, how are you? I'd like to first just introduce myself. My name is Gabriel Bolton. I am the mother of a 2nd grader at Meadows.
They can't hear you in the back, Gabriel.
Okay, I'll get louder. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gabriel Bolton. I'm a mother of a second grader at Meadows. My family didn't live here for a long time, but we moved back in 2018. And I wasn't sure I would stay, but I enrolled my son in kindergarten in Meadows, and it was one of the best experiences. From the moment I walked in the door, I saw Miss Nancy Hoffman, who was my first grade teacher's aide when I was in elementary school at Denley. And instantly, Meadows became our safety. It became consistent. It became an extension of our family and home and core values. My concerns are those that are shared with all of the parents and teachers and people represented tonight, but I'd like to highlight another glaring point that I noticed. It seems to me as if the plans for the elementary school closings are in a bit of a contradiction to the city plans for Vigo County as a whole in terms of growth and development. The vision for the future of Terre Haute, in part, is that Terre Haute and Vigo County is where growth happens, where families are formed, where schools are top-notch, where outdoor recreation thrives, and where entrepreneurship thrives. If this is to be a place where families are formed and schools are top-notch, it won't happen by closing a necessary school in the most desirable zip code in Terre Haute. With Eastern City expansion expected to be on the rise, with a number of upcoming projects to attract new members of the community and retain those that we do have, we would be doing our community a disservice by repurposing, essentially closing, a very needed and beloved educational establishment. It seems that all of Terre Haute is working diligently at rebranding and attracting newcomers, which won't be next year, but in the next 2 to 3 to 5 to 6, 10 years down the road. And with subdivisions and things growing, and with the opportunity for growth in a lot of these larger subdivisions, of course families will be moving here, which will continue to overcrowd the schools that are already existing, even if Meadows closes. If that were the case, we would end up needing another school in the next 5 to 10 years. One concern for young families when they're considering new opportunities are school systems, class sizes, and opportunities. It would be questionable to move to a new city in a new area, claiming growth and expansion and future opportunity that has closed 3 schools in 2 years during a pandemic and would cause me to think twice about the decision. As a parent considering the future, if Meadows were to close, my family would mindfully consider moving out of the VCSC completely. The pandemic has caused a lot of chaos in my child and other children already, with remote learning, fears of the virus, learning challenges, etc., that it concerns me to continue to push the boundaries of their resilience and their ability to adjust. As any parent knows, consistency, stability, and safety are paramount for children's development and well-being. So I just ask you to reconsider.
Ryan Payne.
If I could, we have teachers here with me, concerned community members, parents like myself. We've done the best we can in 2 weeks to form a cohesive message. Can I make our closing remarks as opposed to speaking right now?
You will be limited to your 3 minutes
Sure.
as
Oh,
well as
absolutely.
everybody else.
Yep, thank you. Oh, and I will take my mask off next time.
Kaylee Compton.
Hi, I'm Haley Compton. I'm 9 years old.
Okay, yeah, I
You
can't
can take the
hear you.
microphone out so she can hold it.
Yeah.
Hi,
Talk
I'm
loud
Kaylee.
and clear.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Compton. I'm 9 years old, and I've been in Meadows Elementary since
since I was 5, and it's the only school I've ever known. It's the only school my nephew has ever been good in. And if you take the students away, we'll be sent to a school full of strangers, and the teachers might lose their jobs.
Brian Payne, you're our last speaker.
Thank you. I got a lot of, that's probably, is that okay? I got a lot of pointers on the way up here. Brian Payne, proud Meadowlark. Where do you start? At heart here, I really think is a question of accountability and transparency. I think those of us that have been here in 2016, when our school corporation headquarters was on the front page for having a visit from the FBI, we can never unsee that, right? And I think that's in the back of all of our minds, and I think particularly the makeup of this school board here, I know it is, because 6 out of 7 of you are new and ran on that platform, and even our president here acknowledged that's important to me too. So with that, I just want to point out something. In the time I've been allotted here to speak, that was the extent of the questions asked by the board at the December 1st meeting. It was about 3 minutes. The explanation for the closure, and you've heard great feedback here of all the things to consider. There's a 22-minute presentation, and thank you for that. But 10 minutes of that, about 3 of us speaking, was provided that explanation. So at heart, please include us. And I know that you were presented how this all came to be. We point back to that strategic plan. And I want to go there really quickly and highlight something that hasn't been. Dig into that plan and shoot, I meant to start a timer so I know where I'm at. Dig into that plan.
Minute 20 left.
Thank you, minute 20. Dig into that plan and you'll find something that doesn't surprise those of us here. It actually forecasted in 2020 to 2025 growth. And you know where those top 2 enrollment in K-5 was? Meadows and Davis Park, the Ohio corridor. And everybody knows the big Ohio houses, but I've always been amazed more by the houses behind them. Blocks and blocks and blocks of affordable housing in the heart of this city. The numbers don't compute, and I would implore you, please ask questions and demand. See the financial numbers from the first round. How did that go? Did we achieve our goal? And there was only one goal in that strategic plan: save money. So please, before you consider closing this, make sure you have seen the numbers that convince you beyond a doubt that money was saved. Because I think we all are in agreement here that this is not best for our students, but if it's got to be done, please make sure it makes sense. And lastly, I would close with, please let us celebrate at the next meeting and move it to our home, to our nest, so we can fill it up with Meadowlarks and celebrate our great school. Thank you. Do I have 15 seconds?
Yes.
I had too much on my list, but there is one last thing. This place is not great just on accident. It was intentional. And part of that goes back to there's not enough time. There is a deed, and I'm sure your attorneys, you've got smart attorneys, are aware of it, but I want to talk about the intent of what they wanted from that property there. Because when Holman gave it to the city, he said one thing, that real estate shall be used only for school purposes or functions, or purposes authorized by law to be conducted on school premises, that no buildings or structures except the fence shall be erected or maintained on a strip of land 50 feet wide along that real estate. Bottom line, he saw the value in schools. We see it. That's why it's a wonderful place. Please, please get your questions answered and ask them. Thank you.
We have one other speaker this evening, and it's Kevin Southard, and it's on a non-agenda item. It'll still be 3 minutes, Kevin.
Okay.
My name's Kevin Southwood, and personally, about the cost of the high schools, I think that we have way too many examples in our community that are F grade. You know, we don't vote F grade. We don't get vaccinated F grade. We got trash all over our yards and our homes F grade. You know, we have turned to the river projects that spend $1 million but don't put a penny on the river F grade. We have a mayor that gave $5 million for city employees they did their job. Well, what could that have done for the city? That's an F grade. We built a jail that's 4 times larger than what it was when we had 35,000 more people. Another F grade. We have countless problems in this community, an F grade. We have high poverty rate, and we're being asked to assume the largest tax debt of our entire existence as a county. To me, that's an F grade. You know, we're told that this is going to cost us $333 million. That's true. But for me, that's highly misleading. It's not a $333 million cost. It's a third of $1 billion. And we are probably at our highest poverty rate, and we're supposed to accept that. You know, I disagree with that. We have problems with I forget where I was going, but you know, we just don't have enough examples of showing who we are to understand that a massive debt. You know, okay, I was going to say that I asked for the Vigo County Treasurer to be at some of these meetings and say, hey, you know, if we're throwing out 600, 700 people a year out of their houses, and when we ask for the most massive tax debt in our history, we're going to up that ante by 100%. So the value of an education is really eviction. We're going to evict the poorest people among us into the streets. You know, that really is a setting of how terrorism is, gave birth to it. You throw people out in the streets, you know, and they have nothing to lose, and, you know, it just kind of like trying to feed the jail that we bought. You know, instead of trying to, why do people get into trouble? We don't care. We just we spend more money than we got reason to spend. You know, I just think that we're pretty much a poor example as a community to understand what this debt is going to cost us. And we're going to throw all these people out in the street for the value of education. You know, you get to vote for.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, well, you get to vote without people that don't own homes. You know, they don't have to have a home. They're renters. They get a vote, and everybody else has to pay the cost of that. If you're a homeowner, you could lose your house, and others get a vote. It's taxation without representation.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Southwood. Dr. Hayward.
We will be conducting a tour of
West Vigo Middle School and High School. We will be leaving from the middle school library here in about 5 minutes for those that want to have that walkthrough.
Any other board member have a comment? I would like to advertise the administration building in West Terre Haute for the Smithsonian exhibit that is on right now. It's free of charge. It's open from 10 to 4, Tuesday through Friday, and Sunday, noon to 3. It's a once in a lifetime that the Smithsonian will be in West Terre Haute. It only happened to 5 cities in Indiana, and it's an incredible exhibit focusing on the importance of rivers and waterways, and I hope that you and your children and neighbors will come and visit it. It is something not to be missed. Anybody else? Our next meeting will be December the 27th. And thank you again for being here.